I'm Police Chief John Hutto, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Police Service's 23rd Annual Awards Ceremony. Everyone, please stand for the presentation of the colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the singing of the national anthem by Erica Kinsman.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Erica.
Ready? Up. Colors. Up. Present. Up. Order. Up. Ready? Face. Forward. March. Ready?
Audience, please be seated. If we could I get one more round of applause for Erica and her national anthem? So in addition to recognizing our folks for formal awards each year, we'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the engagement and community involvement the members of our agency have been involved in over the last year. There's countless things that our people are involved in. They've been recognized throughout the course of the year by different organizations for their contributions to the community. The professionalism demonstrated by these members highlights the positive contributions our community has experienced through the actions of these employees. In addition to these individuals, our department was also involved in several organized events during the past year. In late summer of 2014, members of Fort Collins Police Services, as well as City Manager Darren Atterbury, participated in the Ice Bucket Challenge, which was started to bring awareness to ALS. The movement grew into a nationwide phenomenon for a variety of charities, and Fort Collins Police Services took the challenge and raised money for the families of officers killed in the line of duty. We also had the support of PFA for helping us through that, and that water was cold coming out of the fire truck, I can assure you. Members of our agency also participate in Santa Cops as well as Shop with a Cop. These annual programs help families in need during the holidays by having kids shop with officers and deliver gifts to area families. On February 21st of 2015, 36 members of Fort Collins Police Services participated in the Polar Plunge at Horsetooth Reservoir, resulting in an agency contribution of almost $5,000 to Special Olympics of Colorado. Actions such as these serve to illustrate why I am so proud to be a part of an agency that gives so much to the citizens of this community. Before we would begin, I'd like to ask everyone to bow your head for a moment of silence for those officers who have given the ultimate sacrifice to keep their communities safe throughout our nation during the past year. Thank you. I would like to recognize my staff and several dignitaries in the audience. My executive staff, seated on the stage to my left is Assistant Chief Corey Christensen over the Administrative Division, Deputy Chief Greg Yeager, Information Systems Division, Deputy Chief Mike Trombley, Criminal Investigations Division, Deputy Chief Jerry Shager, Patrol Division. Helping me with the awards, and he looks nothing like Vanna White, is Lieutenant Dan Murphy from our Professional Standards Unit. We have some special guests in the audience today. Councilmember Ray Martinez, thank you for being here. City Manager Darren Atterbury, Deputy City Manager Jeff Mihalik, Assistant City Manager Kelly DiMartino. We have some chiefs in the audience. I saw retired CSU Chief Don Hopkins. I think Don's around here somewhere. He's back there. CSU Chief of Police Scott Harris. Saw him in the audience. Sheriff Justin Smith from LCSO is here, as well as his executive officer, Nick Christensen. District Attorney Cliff Riedel. Second Assistant DA Emily Humphrey. Municipal Judge Kathleen Lane. PFA Fire Chief Tom Dement. I'd like to thank all of these folks for being here today with us. Thank you. And obviously, we couldn't pull something like this off without a lot of support from a lot of people. And so I'd also like to recognize our awards committee. They're the ones that go through the volumes of paperwork involved in nominating people for awards and not only helping determine if it's appropriate to do so, but also quite often taking what comes in and saying, yeah, we need to bump that up a little bit or change that designation. So it's a time-consuming job that they volunteer to do. The committee chairperson is Lieutenant Dan Murphy. Also, we have Detective Kyle Benza, Records Specialist Sharon Flynn, Officer Paul Harding, Officer Matt Johnson, Sergeant Jared Kinsman, Administrative Assistant Terry Murphy, Dispatch Supervisor Amy Raditz, Sergeant Kent Robinson, Deputy Chief Mike Trombley, Administrative Assistant Aubrey Walter, and Detective Kelly Weaver. Thank you. Also, you were likely greeted today by some folks that are helping us out. Deborah Dotson, Stephanie Gundry, and Linda Williams also were indispensable today in helping pull this off. Thank you. This is our 4th year here at the Hilton. A special thank you to the staff at the Hilton Hotel Fort Collins and your help with the ceremony. And now I'd like to turn it over to City Manager Darren Atterbury for a few comments.
Thanks, Chief. I want to start by saying, yesterday I saw Dan Murphy in a suit or a coat and tie, and now today, Dan, you're looking good, man. This is fitting you very well. I want to say welcome to everyone. Welcome to our coworkers, the police officers, police staff, and also folks who are here to congratulate people who are being recognized today. What a privilege it is to be part of this group, to be part of a city organization at Chief and Deputy Chiefs that take time to stop and pause and say thank you for great work and recognize our citizens and recognize our coworkers for great work. What I want to talk about just very briefly, other than saying thank you very much, is to talk just very briefly about this idea of co-creation. And I'm talking a lot about it in the city organization. And each of us in this room has a co-creation role. In other words, we are all about co-creating Fort Collins. You know, there were days where maybe people believed that it was, you know, a few leaders and a few business owners and a few elected officials and chiefs of police and others, that university presidents, that build a community. And what I've learned over the last 11 years as being city manager in Fort Collins is that it takes hundreds, thousands of people to build a great community like Fort Collins. So you all may not know this, but we have 306 and a half full-time positions, approved budgeted positions in Fort Collins Police Services. So we have about 306 of you. We have 2,300 employees at the city. So you are a huge part, 300 plus of 2,300 people in the city organization who are building this community in partnership with citizens, in partnership with other community leaders. And the reason why I say that is because I know oftentimes as individual contributors, we think of ourselves as a police officer or as a dispatcher or as a city manager or as an accountant or a stormwater engineer. But collectively, the 2,300 of us are doing amazing work on behalf of this community. So I know that some of you who've been with the city for many years deeply value your role in the bigger connection to the overall city vision. And I just want to say kudos to you and thank you for that. I know some of you who are new to this organization, to this community, may not see that connection yet, but I think it's really, really always important to recognize your group of 300 plus, part of a bigger team of 2,300 plus, building a community of 160,000 people that ultimately in about 25 years, 25 to 32 years, when we build out, we're going to grow by another 100,000 people. So we're a community of about 160,000 now. When we're at build out, we're going to be about 255,000 people. So we need each of you to help co-create this community. So I want to say how much I appreciate the work. Yesterday, Deputy City Manager Jeff Mihalik, our Chief Financial Officer Mike Beckstead, and I came to Police Services to do our quarterly review. This is a new program for us. And what we're doing is meeting with each service area. And what we heard yesterday was about remarkable results. I know, and every time I walk in the police building, I see your vision and mission statement. I know that the goal of these folks and you folks is to be one of the safest, if not the safest community in America. And I applaud you for that. And I think that if I had 160,000 citizens here, they would say the same thing. Thank you for keeping us all safe and protected and helping us live really high quality of life. So what we heard yesterday was we heard your deep commitment, the guys behind me, and also your deep commitment to safety in your jobs and for our community. I heard a ton about the work that you're doing and folks are doing to be more efficient, reduce some of our costs. I want to say thank you for that. That's hard work. The metrics, your dashboard, the results, crime reduction, response times, clearance rates, those sorts of things. I will tell you, and I can speak for these guys as well, we will hold you up against any police department in America. And so on behalf of the city manager's office and the executive leadership team, and I think I can speak for the mayor and city council, we are very, very thankful. And to the citizens and officers and staff who are going to be recognized tonight, we really appreciate your role in co-creating as well. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Darren. It would not be one of these events if I didn't screw something up and forget somebody, so it always happens. But Wendy Williams, Assistant City Manager, is also here, so thank you. So now I'd like to acknowledge the 2014 Fort Collins Police Services Employee of the Month recipients. An employee is nominated by a manager, supervisor, or one of their peers for work they have done that has impacted the agency or the community. I'd like to acknowledge our 12 employees of the month for 2014. Officer Michelle Johnson, January. Sergeant Kurt Clow. Dispatcher Supervisor Margie Gooch. Officer Dexter Rowe. Records Manager Lisa Robles. Financial Analyst Tricia Miraguri. Sergeant Dave Wilson. Officer Todd Hopkins. Lieutenant Dave Haywood. Crime Analyst Brandy Kristen. Officer Matt Johnson, and Property and Evidence Technician Julie Heiser. Please give these employees a round of applause. So one of the most satisfying things that I get to do during this award ceremony is not only recognize all the great work that our department does throughout the year, but also recognize a select few members of our community that have stepped up and certainly gone above and beyond what would ordinarily be expected of them. So I've got a few citizen awards to give out. I'm going to read the awards and then call them up on stage. Steve and Tammy Strasburg. Actually, if you'd like to come on up while I read this, please. In July of 2012, Steve and Tammy Strasburg took over management of the El Palomino Motel located at 1220 North College. Since Steve and Tammy took over, they have tirelessly worked to clean up this location and change the reputation it once had. From July of 2011 through July of 2012, officers were called out to 38 assaults or disturbances at this motel. In contrast, officers were called out to only 10 assaults or disturbances in all of 2014. This is in large part due to the proactive stance the Strasburgs have taken. Nominator Officer Rob Knabb stated that the efforts by the Strasburgs to fits the definition of citizens rendering assistance to our agency and the community, and therefore they are recognized by this department. I'm proud to present each of you with the Meritorious Service Citation. On February 16, 2015, Luke Schwartz was working as a security officer at 2150 Center Avenue. On the security cameras, Luke observed a male who appeared to be acting suspicious. Realizing the nature of the suspect's actions, Luke followed him closely on camera and was able to record him spraying graffiti on the Max Skywalk, which is the bridge over the Max Skyway, in several locations and also on a federal USGS property fence. Luke contacted Fort Collins Police but decided further action was needed to ensure the suspect was apprehended. He left his camera and followed the suspect outside through the parking lot and was able to contact him nearby. The suspect resisted Luke's attempt to take him into custody and had to be physically restrained on the ground until the police arrived on scene. During the following investigation, it was determined the suspect Luke caught was responsible for more than just the graffiti that night. The previous day, Fort Collins Police took several reports of the same type of graffiti from around the CSU campus all the way up to the Harmony and Mason area. Altogether, the suspect caused around $20,000 in damage to both public and private property in Fort Collins. The capture and identification of the suspect was a critical part to close these cases. The identification of the suspect and his link to his particular moniker led to the reopening of more cases in other jurisdictions as well. The arrest of this suspect would likely have been impossible without the assistance of Luke Schwartz, who we commend for his actions. From a grateful agency, we are pleased to present you with the Meritorious Service Citation. On July 16, 2014, Detective Neil Hyson contacted Rodney Phillips and Kip Lesh seeking assistance with a watch that was recovered as part of an investigation into the disappearance of a local endangered gentleman. When Detective Hyson explained he wanted to understand the watch function to see if it would help with the sequence of events leading up to the gentleman's death, you both began working on the watch without hesitation and graciously provided your time and expertise. The time you spent was greatly appreciated by the agency. When you learned that this watch was going to be returned to the family, You volunteered to clean this watch so that it would be presentable to the family. Furthermore, you insisted that you would not accept any compensation. Rodney and Kip, your act of kindness meant a great deal to the family during a very emotional time. I'm pleased to present you both with the Distinguished Service Commendation. On March 15th, 2015, medical and police responded to a call where 10-year-old Joshua Bivens called 911 to report finding his mother unconscious in the bathroom. At the time, Joshua was home alone with his mother and knew he needed to get help as soon as possible. Medical found the woman unresponsive and transported her to the hospital. Josh told officers he learned in Cub Scouts how to use 911 for emergencies and how important it was to stay calm and relay information to dispatchers. His quick and decisive action to call 911 and his ability to stay calm under immense pressure was the reason his mother received rapid, proper medical treatment that in all likelihood saved her life. Josh is recognized for his actions, and I'm pleased to present Josh with the Distinguished Service Commendation. So Nicholas Moon couldn't be with us here today, but it's really important that we read this. In February of 2015, Fort Collins police officers responded to a welfare check of a suicidal male. Initially, the male refused to cooperate with officers and would not come out of his apartment to talk with officers. Approximately 30 minutes later, dispatch received a call from the distraught male advising how he now wanted to talk to police. While police officers arrived on scene, it was learned that the male's friend, Nick Moon, was inside the apartment trying to talk the male into cooperating with police by putting down the rifle and handguns he was armed with, and to go outside to talk with the officers. The male refused and hung up the phone with dispatch. As officers moved toward the apartment, Nick Moon rushed out of the apartment, followed by the suicidal male. The two males struggled on the second-floor stairwell until officers could make contact. Officers learned that Mr. Moon had disarmed his suicidal friend, grabbing the rifle, and had run out of the apartment. His friend caught him, and they struggled over control of the loaded rifle until officers took control. He prevented his friend from hurting himself and most likely prevented this incident from ending tragically. I will accept the Distinguished Service Commendation Award on his behalf and see that it's given to him at a later date. Our next set of awards will be presented by Information Services Deputy Chief Greg Yeager.
Well, good afternoon. I have the pleasure of working in our Information Services division, which really is made up of 4 teams. And this afternoon, as you hear some of these citations for the awards that are going out, you'll see a broad spectrum of people that work across the division and of course work with the other elements of the agency, our criminal investigations and our patrol. And these are really great folks, and so I'm very pleased to be able to share these with you. This very first one is for our Property and Evidence Unit and our Crime Prevention Officer. And so the members of that group are Susan Beard, Katrine Bonham, Mike Butler, who's a former employee, is not able to be with us today, Julie Heiser, who's also not with us today, Annie Merrill, and Susan Vance. So while Susan's coming up here, let me just tell you about this. Fort Collins Police Services Property and Evidence Unit and our Crime Prevention Officers, Susan Vance, participate each year. Over the last few years, twice a year, they participate in the DEA's Prescription Drug Take-Back event. And this went from 2010 through 2014. And the events were a way of providing kind of a safe and secure disposal method that was environmentally safe for over-the-counter medications and prescription medications that our community has. Each event required that at least 3 members of the Property and Evidence Unit and the Crime Prevention Officer, along with 2 police officers, collect those drugs. And then the Property and Evidence Unit, along with our Crime Prevention Officer, would seal those things, weigh them, and label them for the ultimate destruction. Once the events were over, there was a lot of work still to do because they have to store those, make sure that they're transferred safely to the DEA's custody so that they can be incinerated. Until July of last year, I also served as the commander of our Northern Colorado Drug Task Force, and I had the opportunity to work many of these events with these folks. And It was always good to see the way they worked. They're very fluid, very friendly. Lots of vehicle traffic that comes up as people are bringing these items. And this team worked tirelessly, often either in very cold weather or very hot weather. And so I'm very appreciative of that great effort they put into the program. All of them worked outside no matter what the conditions were. And we kept a lot of these things out of our water stream, out of the landfills, and even out of the illegal sales that could go on in our community. So as that DEA program came to an end, Police Services added a drug disposal kiosk in our front counter. And then since March of 2014, that kiosk has allowed our citizens to drop off those unwanted medications on a daily basis. And then the Property and Evidence Unit does the same thing. They keep all these things, label them, and then ultimately send them off for destruction. So today, for this unit and for our couple of members who aren't able to be with us, I'm very pleased to present them with our Police Chief's Unit Commendation. Okay, so the next award that I'm going to present is for some folks from Fort Collins 911, which is our dispatch center. And if these folks would come up and stand with me, Dana Carvalho, Amy Huff, and Julie Maynard. So again, as they're coming up, I'll just read this citation to you. In May of 2012, a group of dispatchers and supervisors volunteered to participate in a new computer-aided dispatch project. We just refer to it as CAD. In July of 2013, those employees attended CAD training and participated in discussions with the vendor and their staff. During that time, Supervisor Amy Huff volunteered to take the lead on the dispatch and CAD system and spent countless hours working with our partner agencies and internal work groups to ensure that code tables, commands, and paging groups were all in order. System issues delayed that team, but by January of 2014, they decided to have 2 primary trainers to prepare curriculum for all the others and to work through the call flow issues. 2 seasoned dispatchers, Julie Maynard, Dana Carvalho, volunteered for the assignment since both had put much time into the system and had begun an update of the training manual. They modified their schedules, and they worked with many partners to ensure functionality. The dispatch training alone took 24 to 26 hours. In addition to preparing training for all the dispatch staff, Julie and Dana created a training manual for the records unit and conducted classes to help them utilize the new CAD system since we depend on it across the agency. Once the system went online, Amy, Dana, and Julie continued to train and assist others. The work and commitment that all 3 demonstrated to this CAD project is not only exemplary, but shows a dedication to the job and this organization. And I'm very happy to present them with the Police Chief's Unit Commendation. Would Nick Sutphin, Tracy Starrick, and Lucas Hensley please join me? These 3 dispatchers are receiving our commitment to excellence today, and so let me read the citation for you. On April 14th of 2014, dispatcher Tracy Starrick took a phone call from Virginia where a 19-year-old man had been communicating for 2 weeks through a video chat with a female in Fort Collins. He became concerned when she started reading him morbid poetry, was cutting her wrists, and counting out pills for an overdose attempt. Fort Collins 911 dispatchers had only been given the female's phone number. They called Sprint for subscriber information, and the phone company referred them to a small phone provider which said the number was rented out to a texting service. Tracy was only able to contact that service via email and then wait for a response. Meanwhile, dispatcher Lucas Hensley was using Facebook photos and Google reverse image searches and discovered the name given by the female was an alias. The female had made up a fake Facebook page and deceived the 19-year-old into believing it was her. The dispatchers heard back from Pinger, the organization that had this information, about 20 minutes later, and they were provided a name and an IP address but no physical address. Lucas found an associated Highlands Ranch address through a driver's license record. He contacted the Douglas County Sheriff's Office to request a welfare check at that address. However, Lucas continued working and also found a 15-year-old in our web query system with the name given by Pinger, and that female had been in trouble for similar text and online activity. The dispatchers identified 2 addresses, and dispatcher Nick Sutphin sent officers to both. This distraught female was located at the second address where she had cut herself and ingested painkillers. She was transported to the hospital for immediate care and placed on a mental health hold. For their dedication and their willingness to make extra efforts in pursuing a safe resolution, I'm proud to present Tracy, Lucas, and Nick with the Commitment to Excellence Award. On October the 11th, 2014, members of the Northern Colorado Drug Task Force assisted with an investigation into a large-scale drug distribution ring operating out of multiple jurisdictions. Very limited information was available for one of the primary suspects, and identification of the suspect was time-sensitive, as other members of that group were being arrested. After detectives were unable to identify a suspect, having received little help from an an out-of-area agency, they contacted dispatcher Tracy Stark to help by sending teletypes to the agency. Beyond simply sending a teletype, Tracy worked through the same bureaucratic issues and through her perseverance was able to contact someone who was willing to help. However, the agency sent an incorrect report and Tracy took the time to read through it and work with her counterpart to seek resolution. All of this occurred during a busy Friday night when radio and telephone traffic were very demanding. Tracy worked during the downtime of her midnight shift and even after she went home. She called the other agency and found the correct identifying information, which she immediately provided to detectives. This instance is just one example of Tracy's constant willingness to help. It shows her work ethic and her initiative, and I'm very proud to present Tracy Stark with Commitment to Excellence. And that's everything for my division. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I'd like to now introduce Assistant Chief Corey Christensen.
Lieutenant Dave Pearson, if you'd come up. Officer Andrea Stout was unable to be with us today. In February of 2014, Lieutenant Pearson was tasked with integrating our policy manual in an effort to meet accreditation standards for the Colorado Association of Chiefs of Police. Due to the circumstances beyond his control, the software used to manage the manual was unworkable and actually threatened to bring the accreditation process to a halt. The process involved meeting over 200 strict standards and policy requirements. The unworkable state of the manual really did threaten the project in general. At the same time, Officer Andrea Stout was assigned to assist Lieutenant Pearson with the accreditation process. She worked tirelessly to match up our policies and programs to meet those strict standards. She was tenacious in making sure that we moved forward in the process and often juggled several priorities as she worked to bring the process to a point that the CACP could assess Fort Collins Police Services. Lieutenant Pearson worked very diligently to create a policy manual and an assessment process that would ensure organizational success in this accreditation process with the assessment team. As a matter of fact, he fixed their process and made it better for them as well in the meantime. Due to this outstanding effort by Lieutenant Pearson and Officer Stout, Fort Collins Police Services received the honor of accreditation from the Colorado Association of Chiefs of Police. They actually commented it was probably the finest assessment they had ever done, one of the finest organizations they'd ever done. And for that work, Lieutenant Pearson and Officer Stout are deserving of the Commitment to Excellence Award.
Thank you, Corey. I'd now like to introduce Deputy Chief of the Investigations Division, Mike Trombley.
Thank you, Chief. You know, I'm very proud of the men and women that are working in the Criminal Investigations Division and grateful for all the hard work that goes on behind the scenes every day. I'm honored to have the opportunity to recognize some of that outstanding work today and the work that took place in the last year. As many of you know, a unique event took place in our division not too long ago. After 35 years with Fort Collins Police Services, Deputy Chief Don Vadge retired on May 1st. Deputy Chief Vadge served our agency in a number of assignments through his tenure, but most importantly, he spent the last 5 years leading the Criminal Investigations Division. I think it's only fitting that Deputy Chief Vadge have a final opportunity to recognize the accomplishments that took place during his tenure, and I've invited Don here today to make those presentations. Don, you want to join me? Deputy Chief Vadge.
It is such an honor to stand before you again today and recognize the outstanding work done by the Criminal Investigations Unit. It's a special treat for me, something I did not anticipate, and I want to say thank you very publicly to Deputy Chief Mike Trombley and to Chief Hutto. So thank you very much for that opportunity. The Criminal Investigations Division, as Mike said a moment ago, is full of employees that work every day behind the scenes, not for fame or fortune, but to serve the victims of crime. And there are some of those crime victims here today, and I just want you to know how tirelessly we work on your behalf. Today, I get to just do a few awards that is just a little snippet of the work we do. And the first involves Officer Keith Maynard. Keith, would you come up, please? As Keith is coming up here, he has since transitioned over to the School Resource Officer program, where he's sharing his expertise in that team. But a while back, he was working in the Crimes Against Persons team in the Criminal Investigations Division. There were several sexual assaults that occurred within the city of Fort Collins back in 2006 and 2008. A suspect was later apprehended for similar crimes in other jurisdictions and is now serving time in the United States Penitentiary in Tucson, Arizona. Detective Keith Maynard was the lead detective on many of those cases that occurred locally, and he followed up on those cases by interviewing the suspect for several hours inside the Arizona prison. The suspect gave Keith considerable information on how he, the suspect, would select victims, perform surveillance on them, and ultimately sexually assault them. Keith also obtained information on things that the suspect said would deter him from completing the assault, as well as things that law enforcement could do better to help investigate these types of crimes. Based on this information, Keith saw a need for some additional training for law enforcement in the community and developed a new training course titled Voyeurism, the Gateway Drug. Keith has presented this class to Fort Collins Police Services Patrol and Criminal Investigations Division personnel, the CSU Athletic Department, and many other community groups. This creative presentation provides many insights about the suspects who engage in window peeper activities within the community and the connection that they have in committing serial sex assault cases within Fort Collins. For his work in this area, Keith is being awarded the agency's Commitment to Excellence Award. Keith, congratulations. This next award is a little bit different. You saw a few moments ago some police chiefs' unit commendations, and there were 3 or 4 individuals that were able to come up onto the stage. This next award has so many people involved that there's no way we'll all fit up here. So we're going to do this one slightly differently. I would like to have Brian Vogel, who is the lead detective on the case, along with Detective Marty Shaw, Detective Jason Shutters, Detective Tim Bredden, and Detective Chris Wagner, please come up to the stage. These individuals played key roles in the involvement in the investigation of this case. Along with these folks, I'm going to ask several more individuals to remain where you are, but please stand and remain standing during the recitation of this award so that the rest of the group can recognize your efforts as well. I'd like the following individuals to please stand. That'd be Detective Andy Kincaid, Detective Scott Crumbaker, Detective David Grant, Detective Kyle Benza, Detective Mike Averick, Investigative Aide Kara Walker, Detective Brian Mallory, Detective Kelly Weaver, Detective Neil Hyson, and Detective Tammy Tracy. In addition to these detectives, I would also like their team supervisors to stand. Sergeant Paul Wood, Sergeant Mark Martinez, Sergeant Dean Cunningham, and Lieutenant Dave Haywood. These bosses helped coordinate and manage an incredible amount of workload that the detectives were doing that helped bring this to a successful conclusion. So here's the facts of the case, many of which you've read in the newspapers. This was a very highly publicized event. In October 2014, 2 patrol cars were broken into and our patrol rifles were stolen from each vehicle. The property unit, along with detectives from the financial crimes and forensic services units, responded. Over the next 10 days, detectives from these units, as well as the criminal impact unit, drafted and executed 12 search, arrest, and production of records warrants. They followed multiple leads, worked with several Denver metropolitan agencies, as well as agencies throughout the state of Colorado, ultimately leading to the recovery of these stolen guns. Evidence collected at the scene was positively linked to one of the suspects, and members of our forensic services team walked that evidence through the regional crime lab as well as the crime lab at the Colorado Bureau of Investigation for a quick turnaround time. Detectives worked multiple 12 to 17-hour days, drove hundreds of miles, and interviewed anyone and everyone that had information about these firearms. Every potential lead was followed until the rifles were recovered near Fairplay, Colorado. And the two suspects were subsequently arrested. A full confession was obtained from one of the suspects, implicating the other suspect as a conspirator in the theft of the firearms. Detective Vogel and investigative aide Carol Walker continued to follow up with a collection of phone records and video information to corroborate the confession and make a solid prosecutable case. Although personnel involved in this investigation included many others from within the patrol and investigations divisions, this core group of individuals was responsible for exemplary work over the course of many days and therefore deserved to be recognized for their tenacity, skills, and dedication to duty that brought this case to a successful closure. Sergeant Wood, Sergeant Cunningham, Sergeant Martinez, and Lieutenant Haywood supervised and managed this investigation and communicated all of this information both to me and to Chief Hutto. The entire agency really pulled together for this case. While we deal with crime victims every day, in this case, we were the victims. Nothing was more important than recovering these weapons before they could be used by bad guys to commit violent crimes against innocent citizens. Thank you each for all of the work you did to recover these weapons. You are truly deserving of the Police Chief's Unit Commendation.
Want to quickly say we got to work with a lot of great people, a lot of different agencies. Just very blessed to have such a great expanded team. So, and we got our stuff back. Thank you.
I have one more award that I am privileged to present. It's the Police Chief's Commendation. Detective Jacqueline Shackley, would you please come up here? In April 2014, the City of Evans Police Chief requested that Fort Collins Police Services reopen a death investigation that occurred in Evans, Colorado on January 1st, 2012. In that case, 28-year-old Ashley Fallis' death was determined to have been a suicide with a single gunshot wound to her head, and the case was closed. Ashley's parents believed from the outset that Ashley's husband was responsible for her death and continuously requested a reinvestigation into her death. I have to pause there for just a minute and let you know that there are many members of Ashley's family here today to witness Jacqueline receiving this award. We agreed to reopen the case, and Detective Jacqueline Shackley was assigned as the investigator. She conducted a thorough and detailed investigation into the events surrounding Ashley's death, including multiple interviews with people who had not previously been interviewed, some of which were reluctant to cooperate, and some whose memories had faded with the passage of time. Detective Shackley tenaciously chased down every conceivable lead and thoroughly documented statements, telephone evidence, and worked with an expert crime scene reconstruction witness. Detective Shackley voluntarily returned to duty early from maternity leave and worked with the district attorneys in Weld County to prepare for and present the case to the Weld County Grand Jury. On November 14th, 2014, just 6 weeks before the statute of limitations would have precluded the filing of charges in Ashley's death, the grand jury unanimously indicted her husband, Tom Fallis, for second-degree murder. Through personal initiative, tenacity, and effort, Detective Jacqueline Shackley solved this major crime, holding Tom Fallis accountable for taking the life of Ashley Fallis. On Thanksgiving Day, Detective Shackley received a heartfelt email from Ashley's father, Joel, written on behalf of the entire family, wishing her well and thanking her for her efforts. Excerpts from that email are as follows, and I quote, "I want to thank you with all my heart for all the hard work that you've poured into our daughter's case. There is no doubt in my mind that because of your strong desire and determination to seek truth and justice served for my family's behalf, Ashley's case is where it is right now. It is my strong opinion that Detective Shackley goes above and beyond her call of duty and is a huge benefit and asset to Fort Collins Police and the city of Fort Collins," unquote. Well, we don't know yet what the outcome of this case will be. It's still scheduled for trial and things are moving along. But win or lose, the family of Ashley Fallis knows that Detective Shackley has done everything she could do to bring justice for the victim and for her family. Jacqueline, your efforts in this case are very deserving of the police chief's commendation.
Very brief. I just wanted to thank Sergeant Valesky, Lieutenant Haywood, and Deputy Chief Vaggi, as well as the Chief, for trusting me with such a challenging and interesting case. And I also wanted to thank the Crimes Against Persons team for picking up all the slack for me while I was completely unavailable and only working this case for a long period of time. And most importantly, I want to thank Gary, my husband, for making it doable and less painful to leave a 5-week-old at home. Thanks.
Thank you, Don. Now I'd like to introduce Deputy Chief of our Patrol Division, Jerry Shager.
Good afternoon. Like the Chief said, my name is Jerry Shager. I have the privilege of working with the Patrol Division, which is basically somewhere around 150 women and men that patrol the streets of this city 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I want to say that I'm very proud of them. In those many, many hours that they work, there are a lot of good things that go on. I'm here to point out a few of those that are representative of many things that happen throughout the year. If I could have Officer Annie Hill join me, please. Whispering Pines apartment complex has been known as an apartment complex with a steady rate of calls for police service. Police Officer Annie Hill of the Neighborhood Enforcement Team partnered with different city service areas and community-based organizations to address these concerns. Using a community-oriented policing approach, Officer Hill identified and prioritized those concerns by engaging apartment complex personnel, residents of the complex, the city's building code services, neighborhood and development services, and police employees. She developed a crime-free leasing initiative, coordinated police foot patrols, and facilitated neighborhood meetings to increase the quality of life for the residents of the complex. At the end of 2014, police services measured an 80% decrease in calls for service at the complex, and residents report a higher quality of life due to Officer Hill's efforts. I am pleased to present Officer Annie Hill with the Commitment to Excellence Award. So our next award is Sergeant Richard Ziegler. If you'd join me up here, please. This nomination was submitted on behalf of the Use of Force Review Board, which was convened in reference to an incident that happened on June 5th, 2014, where officers were dispatched to Poudre Valley Hospital on a report of a male running around with a knife. The male lunged at an officer, and the officer responded by shooting the suspect. Sergeant Ziegler did an exceptional job of supervising this incident. He took a hands-on role and demonstrated leadership for his young officers to resolve the situation quickly and safely. He then immediately took the involved officer out of the incident, directed his officers in the many tasks that needed to be done, and made notifications to investigations command staff and arranged for the day shift to come in early to cover the street because he had spent his entire shift on that incident. Overall, the board believes that the quality work done by Sergeant Ziegler in this situation exemplifies the work that he does in supervising the least senior officers working the midnight shift every day. Dick Ziegler has supervised the midnight shift for about 15 years, and I imagine that almost every blue suit sitting in this room has worked for Sergeant Ziegler at some point or another. This is quite a feat. Really is. I mean, given the seniority of the way our shift bid works, New officers most of the time start on the night shifts. And Sergeant Ziegler has just done an amazing job over the years of taking these young officers under his wing and teaching them how to be good police officers. So although this is really specific to an incident, the board felt, and I convened that board, the board felt very strongly that Sergeant Ziegler was well deserving of receiving an award for that incident that exemplified so many other nights that Dick has worked. So I'm proud to present Sergeant Richard Ziegler with the Commitment to Excellence Award. The next award is for Sergeant Sean Giddings and K-9 Trigger. Trigger, if you could bring Sean up here, please. There you go. Help him find the way up here. All right, be good. On February 3rd, 2015, dispatch received a 911 call from a clerk at the Western Gas convenience store located at 1113 West Drake, reference a robbery in progress. Dispatch obtained a good description of the suspect from the clerk and a customer inside the store and aired that the suspect went east after exiting the store. After officers arrived on scene and a perimeter was set up, Sergeant Giddings and K-9 Trigger assisted on scene and started a K-9 track. This track crossed South Shield Street and entered the Cimarron apartment complex. Trigger locked into a good scent, which was followed through the apartment complex until he alerted on an older pickup with a bed topper. Sergeant Giddings located a male suspect in the pickup, evidence of the crime, and also located in the truck, was also located in the truck, and officers assisted in taking the suspect into custody. This successful K-9 track led directly to quickly locating and ultimately arresting the suspect in this robbery. I'm happy to present Sergeant Giddings and K-9 Trigger with the Commitment to Excellence Award. Good job, Trigger. So Sean's going to stay up here. Sean and Trigger are going to stay up here, and I'd like to invite the rest of the K-9 unit, if they could, to join us up here for a unit commendation. That's Sergeant Sean Giddings, Officer Frank Barrett, and K-9 Ace, Officer Brett Dollar and K-9 Yago, Officer Derek Ross and K-9 Doc, Officer Jake Schneider and K-9 Zeus, Decoy Officer Phil Selgren, Decoy Officer Ryan Barish, and Decoy Officer Dustin Weir. Probably a good thing they don't all have their dogs with them. In 2014, the K-9 unit experienced unusual growth and success worthy of recognition. In 2014, Sean Giddings was able to secure a new K-9 handler position. In the time Sergeant Giddings took over the training and overall supervision of the unit, he has improved the proficiency and quality of the K-9 handlers and their K-9 partners. He also secured top-tier training for K-9 decoys, which was hosted this year by our agency. As important as the leadership of this team, so also is the responsiveness, quality, and dedication of the team members. In January of 2014, Officer Derek Ross was selected to be the 5th handler, joining Sergeant Giddings, Officer Frank Barrett, Officer Brett Dollar, and Officer Jake Schneider. This year, 3 K-9 decoys were also added to the K-9 unit. Officer Ryan Barish, Dustin Weir, and Phil Selgren were all selected to fill vacant positions. They attended a week-long K-9 decoy school hosted by this agency and received their formal training. For those of you who don't know what a K-9 decoy does, they get to be on the mean side of the dog, catching the dogs and laying down tracks and allowing the dogs to practice on them. That is one position I never was interested in, but we greatly appreciate their service. Overall deployment for this year increased 19% over the work done in 2013. During 2014, the K-9 teams made a total of 77 suspect arrests, seized $22,000 in cash, responded to 20 off-duty requests for assistance, and performed 18 public demonstrations. I am happy to present the K-9 unit with the police chief's unit commendation. The next award I get to present is Police Chief's Unit Commendation for our school resource officers. If our school resource officers would please join me up here on the stage, those that are here. Got a lot of school resource officers here considering they've just finished doing a lot of work, and this is probably the first week they've had that hasn't been very busy for them. So the members of the unit, Lieutenant Jim Byrne, Sergeant Dave Wilson is the unit supervisor, Officer Gil Cron, Officer Dave Hart, Officer Jeff Holpuck, Officer Tammy Holpuck, Officer Don Johnson, Officer Matt Johnson, Officer Michelle Lashinsky, Officer Sue Mateer, Officer Keith Maynard, Officer Jared Sargent, Officer Trevor Smotherman, and Officer Carrie Wills. In late 2012, members of the School Resource Officer Program began discussing the concept of a training program for school staffs that dealt with responding to critical incidents. The intent was to build training that would empower school staffs to respond to incidents that could have significant impact on the safety and security of students and their staff members. In June of 2014, the support from Poudre School District, the first training was presented to over 150 administrators from Poudre School District and other invited schools. The training was fast-paced and scenario-based. The training was presented by personnel from the Fort Collins Police Services, from Poudre School District and Larimer County Sheriff's Office. One Poudre School District administrator stated that the training had changed the way they would look at doing business. The majority of feedback from participants was that the training was some of the best they had ever attended in their careers. Officials from other school districts and police agencies are now requesting information and assistance because of word getting out about the success of the program. This was a team effort involving many folks from numerous organizations. But Sergeant Dave Wilson and his team of SROs made this happen. They had the vision, commitment, and put their hearts into making the training outstanding. I had the privilege of being able to come out and observe some of the training and to talk to some of the participants. This is a very significant step forward for our community and our relationship with the school district and our preparedness to react to emergency situations. I'm proud to present the School Resource Officer Unit with the Police Chief's Unit Commendation.
Just like to say that something like this doesn't come to fruition with a lot of planning, a lot of people involved. For probably the last 15 years, school resource officers, the school security officers, school admin, our admin, these guys, it doesn't work without all that. And without the proper leadership, these guys, Dave's not here, but he was key in this. And if you guys all know him, he's not coming, so, but he deserves that, but thank you.
Beginning to think we should have gotten her a seat on the stage. Tracy Stark, would you join me on stage, please? On November 7th, 2014, dispatcher Tracy Starrick was heading in to work when she came upon an apparent car versus pedestrian accident at East Prospect Road and South Timberline Road. Several 911 calls into the 911 center had informants reporting the female pedestrian was unconscious. Tracy pulled over and immediately assisted in rendering aid to the pedestrian by stabilizing her neck and checking for further apparent injuries. After further investigation and a crash team call-out, it was found that the female had suffered serious bodily injury. This incident is exemplary of Tracy's innate desire to help out where there's a need. And for her actions, we award Tracy with the Medal of Merit. One other quick point, Tracy is the first civilian to be awarded a medal in our department's history. Officer Matt Bro. On June 5th, 2014, officers were dispatched to Poudre Valley Hospital on a report of a male running around with a knife. Several officers responded, including Officer Matt Bro. Officer Bro observed a male being escorted out of the emergency room by security personnel, and he made contact with the male. The male produced a knife and advanced towards Officer Bro. The male rushed at the officer with the knife, clearly trying to stab Officer Bro. Officer Bro discharged his firearm into the male, stopping the attack. Officer Bro and other responding officers got medical attention for the male immediately, and the male survived. During this incident, the suspect was in close proximity to the security guard, and Officer Bro placed himself at significant risk to ensure the safety of that security guard and other people inside the emergency room. Officer Bro, I'm pleased to present you with this Medal of Valor. Officer Peter DeCracker. On October 5th, 2014, at approximately 3:47 p.m., Officer Peter DeCracker was dispatched to check the welfare of a man who was sprawled out on the second floor landing at the Cimarron Square Apartments located near Shields and Drake. As Officer DeCracker arrived on scene and began checking the stairwells, he noticed a bicycle lying on the concrete and then noticed a man sprawled out on the second floor landing. He contacted dispatch and advised them of his location and told them he would be in contact with this individual. Officer DeCracker walked halfway up the stairs to speak to this person. The individual was identified but was evasive with his answers and became increasingly agitated. Officer DeCracker requested a second officer to assist. The suspect got up off the ground and began walking in a circle, becoming fidgety with his hands. Officer DeCracker asked the suspect to take his hands out of his pockets slowly and to sit down and remove his backpack. As the suspect began slipping the backpack off his shoulders, he turned and produced a revolver, pointing the revolver and lunging at Officer DeCracker. Officer DeCracker heard a gunshot, saw smoke coming out of the barrel of the gun, and felt a bullet hit his right shoulder. Realizing his life was in danger, Officer DeCracker drew his firearm and returned fire. Officer DeCracker calmly got on the radio and advised that shots had been fired and that he had been hit. Officer DeCracker kept the suspect at gunpoint until additional officers arrived to help him. Additional officers responded quickly to the scene. Sergeant Sean Giddings met with Officer DeCracker, checked his welfare, and noticed he was bleeding and had been shot in the shoulder. Officer DeCracker was treated by paramedics and transported to Medical Center of the Rockies. Officer DeCracker's bulletproof vest prevented the bullet from penetrating his body, but did leave a significant blunt force injury to his right shoulder. Officer DeCracker reacted immediately to this serious threat and had no choice but to use deadly force to stop the suspect. Officer DeCracker's use of force was unavoidable, justified, and necessary to protect him from death. For his heroic actions, we award Officer DeCracker with both the Medal of Honor and the Purple Heart. That brings us to the end of our ceremony today. Thank you very much. I'd especially like to thank all the officers that were in attendance today and the community members that were here to help us celebrate with our department for a very, very good year in service to the community. Please drive home safely and enjoy the rest of your day.